Call the meeting to order, and we ask you to rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was June 17th of this year. May I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Now is the point where if there is any public comments or participation that would be requested, as long as the item is not listed as an agenda item, we'd ask you to state your name and come forward. Thank you. Hearing none, we're going to move into the subdivision land development plans. The first item is LTPC 320, the Burroughs Elementary School, and this is a modification request listed as a briefing item. Who is here to speak to that?
Hi, Connie Kane with Main Architects, and Matt Shields of the school district is here.
Thank you.
So we are looking at the existing aging trees on the site, along the street, and as we're getting into moving over into that work, looking at the street widening, the curbing that we're doing, the sidewalk replacement, and thinking that these trees, just based on their age, are not likely to do well with all of that work so close to them. So we're proposing to replace the four large trees that are in the images in your packet with 8 other trees on the site. We're keeping them a little bit farther away from the sidewalk, but we do want to keep the main portion of that site pretty open for athletic use for the school and for the community. So we didn't want to add trees into the interior of that grassy area. I think that's it, unless you have questions.
Okay. Ben, would you like to add anything before we have any questions?
The requirement is to replace for any tree that is going to be damaged or is damaged during construction, designated to be preserved, at least 3 trees with an equivalent cross-section area at maturity. So plant a tree, you're expecting it to grow, it's got to have equivalent cross-section area of all the trees that are going to come down. You're figuring some of them are not going to survive, so that's why we came up with, if you remember when we amended our subdivision land development ordinance, we had a bit of back and forth and arbitrarily sort of said, okay, well, let's make it 3 trees, and hopefully those that are replaced, they will ultimately survive and have an equivalent mature cross-sectional area, size of trees. As Connie pointed out, it just would crowd out that open space athletic area that is proposed to be where the existing Burroughs Elementary School is. And we were back and forth quite a bit over that. Said when they indicated that they'd rather replace some of these trees rather than watch them be damaged or have to deal with it in another way. They said, we'd like to get permission. I said, well, that's a saldo modification request. We need to have it go through the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. I'm recommending approval, but it's a policy choice on your part that's not really technical in nature, but it is something that's explicitly stated in our subdivision land development ordinance. So happy to answer any questions that I can, or I'm sure Connie or Matt would as well.
Okay, thank you. Angie, do you have any
You know
questions?
I'm going to have questions.
Exactly.
Did an arborist look at these trees and evaluate that they probably wouldn't make, survive the construction?
The landscape architect at Harbor Engineering.
Okay,
I don't know if she's technically an arborist.
Okay.
But she is kind of their landscape tree specialist.
and the streets being widening so it'll encroach upon that root mass, that's part of it, okay. Would it be, school district has a lot of property, would it be reasonable to just put 2 of the trees at another site?
That's
In
not
the
something that they offered, nor something we've gotten into a discussion
Okay,
about.
so the idea here is we probably would have said 3 trees at 2-inch diameter, now we'd have 2 at 3-inch diameter. Is that what we're going?
2 at
Or-
3-inch diameter?
Like if they were gonna put 3 trees and plant 3 trees that were 2 inches in diameter for 6, now we're gonna look for 2 trees that are planted at 3,
No,
No.
they'll still be 2-inch diameter trees.
okay.
It's just that ultimately these
They're
are a
bigger,
species
a
that would
species
grow
that's
to
large.
that same cross-sectional area.
Okay, okay.
Are they gonna, I'm sorry, are they gonna be native trees?
Well, that's gonna be my next question, so you teed that up.
They are
Request that
all-
they-
Yes, they are all native trees. What's there are, what we're asking to replace are 4 honey locusts.
Mhm.
We're putting 2 of those back, 2 Shumard oak, 2 Magnifica hackberries, and 2 Bohol red maples, which are all native.
What kind of oak again?
Shumard,
I'm not too sure that I would look that up.
I don't know personally.
So just ask that, if this goes through, that we confirm that we're planning
Sure,
native
and
species.
we're willing to change
Yeah.
species. So we can check back in with Harbor Engineering, and if any of these are not, we can make a shift.
Any
So why
other,
not?
any other questions from the planning commission members?
Yes, so with the street widening, is the sidewalk staying in the same location?
Sidewalks and shifting.
This- Yes, the sidewalk shifts into the property because there's going to be more of a grass strip than there currently is. So the sidewalk does shift.
So the
location.
grass strip is gonna stay the same width?
No, it widens from what it exists currently is.
But so with the proposed street width to the proposed sidewalk, is that strip width gonna equal the same as the existing width?
No,
So you're increasing the width?
yes, it is increased. Yes.
Why not just reduce your width on your grass strip so you don't need to cut the trees down?
We did look at that. Harbor Engineering met with, I believe, there was part of the conversation that we kind of went back and forth with the township. And we kind of looked at all of the options to see what could be accommodated per the approved plans and the ordinances that exist currently with the township. And so we felt this was the best approach to accommodate what is approved currently and try to meet the ordinance requirements.
So the minimum width is 2 feet per the saldo for a grass strip. You could easily meet that minimum width by shifting your sidewalk so that you didn't need to encroach on the tree's root mass. I mean, we're looking at 50-year-old trees here.
Yeah,
I mean, and they play a big role in the landscape of that street, and they provide a significant additive to the neighborhood. To get back to that width or those sizes, we're looking at another 50 years. I probably won't be on the planning commission anymore at that time, but
yeah, and I think, I mean, if you have the site plan, even if we shifted the sidewalk over, virtually the whole sidewalk is under the canopy already, would be, even if we shifted it back. So I think one of the concerns was digging for that new sidewalk and what we would damage there.
so it seems like you can leave the sidewalk in the same spot while widening the street to reduce the grass strip to stay within 2 feet minimum. as far as I can see on the plans. You see
Am I hearing an agreement here or a confirmation of what was just said?
I do not know the exact width of that grass strip.
I don't have it.
It's not indicated on this drawing, so that is something we have to just double check. I think some of it was the grade. There's a little bit of regrading over there. We can certainly circle back with Barbara and get more information on the width of the grass strip and if there is any grade change that would affect the existing trees. See how far out that sidewalk could go.
And was there any information, I know, Ben gave an explanation of some of the thinking that goes into this, but was there any indications or documentation about any concerns about the condition of the existing trees?
But we currently do have a lot of limb walls throughout the school year. We've had it over the past few years. We've actually had the power company come in and trim back a couple of those trees significantly because of storm damage, as well as they have taken us some power lines during some recent storms in the past year. So there's some concerns. We can have an arborist take a look at them for the health of the trees and get a kind of assessment of what they currently are. But we do experience a lot of limb loss when we have experienced windstorms and severe weather that we're constantly picking up as we're doing the regular mowing and stuff.
Yeah, I'll just
Don?
add from a oh, sorry, Don.
I'm good.
Just have from a planning standpoint too, large trees that have large canopies also help with speed in a neighborhood because it creates this feeling where the road is smaller than it is, and a large tree like this is going to take to replace a tree like this is going to take a long time to get back to that. So if an arborist comes out and says the trees are in poor shape and they're likely not going to survive another year or two, then I'm all for cutting them down and then replacing them. But I think you ought to look at keeping that sidewalk in that same spot, reduce your grass strip width to keep the trees as the first option.
Anybody from the audience that has a question or comment on this? Then I would say,
Glenn,
I'm sorry.
I'll just say, I agree with Tom, if they can be saved, I think, and some modifications, that'd be great. I will add that, I looked up here, that species of oak is native to Pennsylvania. Does like moist, wet woods, which might not be a fit, but it likes warmer things, so with climate change, might be a good fit. As things become moist and wetter.
Are you talking about
And
the existing?
The Schumacher, no, the replacement, if they go down that road. But I think if we can manage, if they're healthy and we can save them, would be our first.
Since this is listed as a briefing item, you do not have to take action and think that there's hearing the questions and so forth, and also I'm hearing a willingness to revisit. I would like to know the Planning Commission's thoughts on let's bring this back to us as an action item at the next meeting. I'm asking you for your opinion.
How does that fit with your
What does that
your
impact?
construction schedule?
We can come back.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that one.
Okay.
I support that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a second briefing item, and this is on the Lancaster County Correctional Facility, and it's a pre-application briefing, so if you'd identify yourself, who's speaking for us?
Yes.
Commissioner.
Good evening. I'm Ray D'Agostino, County Commissioner, and I'm joined by some of our team here from the county. We have with us David Miller, who is with the two. They are our engineers on this project. We have, continuing on this row, we have Bob Devonshire, who is our Director of General Services, and then immediately back at him is Joe Schiffer, is the deputy warden for the prison. And then next to him is Linda Schreiner, our director of purchasing. Next to her is Warden Cheryl Stieberger, the current warden of the prison. And I don't know who you are, sorry, but you're not part of this. You're not part of this. I'm going down the line, I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Is she a virtual team member?
I don't know. Anyway, don't get worried, we're all not gonna get up, and that's not the plan, it's not all of us get up and talk tonight, but yes, we're here really as a preliminary briefing, a sketch plan. So we will be back with a more formal sketch plan and a formal process to bring to you. But we've been working with your staff on this project, quite frankly, for a number of years now. You may recall the last time we were here, it's hard to believe it, which some of us were just talking about. It seems like not very long ago, maybe yesterday, but we were here back in 2021 to ask for zoning changes, zoning ordinance and map change. In fact, I was remarking that right in back of you is the new map, and the property we're talking about, just so everybody knows, if you look at the square, the blank square, that's the city, right then square, and the Gray Peninsula is what we're talking about here. That's where the new correctional facility is going to go. And with your help, we were able to, and with much of our appreciation, able to rezone that and then change the ordinance so we could be here before you tonight to finally present basically a preliminary sketch plan for the site development. So my goal tonight really is to kind of bring you up to speed. Where have we been since 2021, where we are today, where we're heading, and then turn it over to David Miller, who will go over basically the sketch plan. So let's go back to 2020. 2020 is when we started the process of looking for a new site. And we landed on this site after looking at several, quite frankly, and we provided the public with information about this site as we were looking at purchasing it. We went through a due diligence period, which included coming before you, as I mentioned, in 2021, ultimately having the property rezoned and then the zoning ordinance updated. And then in 2022, February to be exact, we closed on the purchase of the property. It's about 77.5 acres all total. Right after that, we began to work on a needs assessment. A needs assessment is something that you go through when you're looking at, well, what are your needs? What are the things that we need to be considering when we're looking at a new facility? Remember, this is the first new facility of a correctional or prison facility or jail since the 1850s. And so while we've added on to the current site, that site, as I've mentioned many times and everybody knows, is inadequate. But things have changed since, whether it's the 1850s or the 1950s or the 1970s or 90s, when the property or the buildings were updated to some degree, things have changed. You know, correctional systems have changed. And so we need to look at what the needs are for a new facility. So that was done finished in February 2023. Right after that, we started the program and report, which is to say, okay, we now know what our needs are. And that was done by a professional organization, a company that we hired to be our owner's rep, professionals in the business, working with our team. Then went to the program report, which is say, okay, here are the needs, but how do we look at those needs and then putting them in a new facility? What does that look like in terms of a new facility? We take that information, and that was approved in 2024. We take that information, which included, by the way, a total number of beds we were looking at. At one point, we were looking at a total number of 1,200. We took a look at that, and we said, well, that's probably really more than we need for the next so many years. And we said, really what we really should be looking at is 1,000. And so today we're looking at 1,050 beds. It's quite frankly not much different than our capacity today, but a lot of that capacity is not usable. That's why we need a new facility. So we took the preliminary report and said, okay, here's what we need, here is how it would potentially function in a new facility. Then we take all of that and we put it into a schematic design. That was completed in 2024. Schematic design is basically something that looks at a facility from a two-dimensional, what I call a two-dimensional look. Sort of looking at all the different pieces. It's building upon one thing after another. The needs assessment, the program report, and then the schematic design, which says, okay, this is how things will generally fit together in a two-dimensional way without actually looking at a outline of a facility. So that was completed in August 2024. And since that time, which has been about a year, we have been working on, the team has been working on basically a final design. In that process, we've hired an architect to join the team. So we have an owner's representative that was hired in the very beginning to help us guide the whole project, along with our team from the county. We then hired an architect, which we did so that we can start, the final design of the facility. And then not long ago, just several weeks ago, we approved a construction manager. Now, why would you need a construction manager before you have actually construction documents or bids or anything? Well, the reason is, as you can well imagine, on a project this size, there's a lot of moving parts. It's a big facility, a lot of things that are going to go in this facility. And so what we are looking for is to have a construction manager come on to join the team to help us do some value engineering up front. Because what we want to do is really have a facility that will serve the citizens of Lancaster County today and well into the future, but something that will be efficient and effective and also cost effective. This is a huge project. It's going to be a huge amount of tax dollars, as we know, and so we want to make sure that we're getting it right. And so we've done all of that to date. Along the process, at every single point that I just mentioned, which are milestones in this process, we have had public listening sessions, one or more. And so we come to a milestone, we say, okay, here's a draft, please, we need some feedback, input, before we actually adopt it. So this has been a very deliberative process. And tonight is another part of that deliberative process. We're coming to you with a sketch plan, a preliminary informal sketch plan. We're still working on the site design as we work on the interior design. And so we will be back before you. You'll see us a few more times. But we want to make sure that we continue that deliberative process in the public, with all the people who would be the decision makers. And so that's why we're here tonight. And hopefully you'll get a sort of a picture, an idea of what we're looking at on the site, and also sort of tee it up for October when we come back for a more formal sketch plan before we actually submit a preliminary land development plan, which we hope will also be a final, because we're designing it to final. So that's where we are. That's how we're moving forward. I know you're probably asking yourself, well, okay, that's wonderful, but what's the real timeline beyond here? When do you really see this facility being built and open? That's an open question, but if we continue on the processes we are, we could be looking at having bids sometime next year for the construction. If that happens, then we're looking at either the end of 28 or the beginning of 29 for an opening. But as we said, we're not really trying to rush this. We're really trying to be deliberative to make sure and open with the public about what we're trying to accomplish here and really get some good feedback. So that's where we're at and where we're heading. I'll turn it over to David Miller to sort of go over the sketch plans we have at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Not blocking anymore.
There we go. It worked. All right. So as Commissioner DiAgostino said, I'm Dave Miller with Ritu Associates, and do appreciate the time you've given us to talk through this. At this point, this is an informal discussion of where we're at right now, give you the general picture of where we're heading with this as we work through the engineering, and get any feedback that you might have at this point. As was stated, we will be back. We'll do a presentation for the supervisors as well in October, and then be back before you with a formal sketch plan presentation in October, the following week, and then back to the supervisors for formal sketch plan. So this is really an introduction of the site to you, and if you have any questions, we can talk through that. But as Commissioner said, it's about a 77.5 acre parcel, and it's fronted on Highland Avenue. So the entrance to the site will be, if you know where that existing driveway is, kind of a construction staging area used in the past, that type of thing. That's where this driveway is going to be located, going up into the site. And then we've got a ring road around the building itself. That's for security, for maintenance. And then we've got 3 parking areas. They're separated for safety purposes and whatnot. There's the staff parking located, and by the way, north is planned left. So as we're talking about directions here, staff parking to the north, visitor parking and work release parking is this area here, and then there's a separate area for juvenile parking as well. One of the emphases on this was to locate the mechanical areas and the loading and the service areas to the northeast, as far away from the residences as feasible for that. And I should give a even broader picture. The County Central Park is on the other side of the Conestoga River. This is the river running through there, Conestoga Park. Greenwood Cemetery immediately to the north, and Angleside is located down here. This is just north of the split between Willow Street Pike, which goes south, and then Highland Ave going north through there. From another exciting component of this, not just the prison facility, but also some pedestrian access ways being incorporated into this project as well. Represented by the red dots through here, we'll be providing a sidewalk along Highland Avenue, and then a 10-foot wide path up into the site. And then that will continue down to, this is a combined emergency access as well as pedestrian path. There's and then the emergency access will continue down through the old, dirty old tavern through there. That was already part of an approved project for the improvement of the emergency access, as well as the trailhead parking area that exists now in gravel condition. That'll be improved as well. But then that'll be extended up into our site as part of the pedestrian network. Also, along Morton Lane. Morton Lane is just to the north here. This is county property, sliver through here. There's a driveway there. That will be conformed to pedestrian access as well, and also a secondary emergency access. So from the emergency access standpoint, the primary will be down through here, and the Dirty Old Tavern down to 272, and then a secondary emergency access will be out to Greenwood Avenue. This way. This drawing shows the wooded areas that are on the site. This is primarily agricultural use down through here, but there are trees surrounding the site. There's a 100-foot wide PPL easement that runs through here. And we've oriented, we're still working through grading and details, that type of thing, but in an effort to minimize tree disturbance, you can see the tree buffer that will continue to remain as a result of this project. Also, as part of this red checked area, that is a greenway easement that will be part of this plan, part of a future trail network to provide for that. We have coordinated with Red Rose as far as bus service. We will be, right now there's a bus stop at Greenwood Ave intersection that will be relocated onto the county's property down to this area, and Red Rose is all on board with that as well. Red Rose will not go up into the prison site. They've made that clear to us. So that is, that's I should mention also that water and sewer is provided by the city. Will be connecting to the city system in Greenwood Ave. Now this way we've coordinated all of that with the city and they're fully on board with that. We will, a little hard to see, but we are providing a landscape screening through here to buffer the residential properties to our site as well through there. And we will be asking, when we come before you with the formal sketch plan presentation, we will be asking for a waiver of to go preliminary / final plans at one time to streamline that process as well. So we'll make that application with a sketch plan. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you may have, any comments.
I have one. Can you speak to any sort of efficiency or sustainability building practices you're considering? Like, is this roof suitable for solar panels or anything like that?
We're not in a position to talk about the building itself.
Okay, that's for future.
This is for land development. The design of the facility is being done as we speak.
Okay.
Huh? Joe?
You mentioned there was a previous plan approved for the access and the pedestrian walkway.
The emergency access is going through the parking area of the Dirty Old Tavern.
When it goes under the bridge.
And goes under the bridge. So that gravel, essentially it's paving the gravel area that's already there.
And there, you mentioned a trailhead?
The trailhead, yeah, there's a gravel parking area down in this area right now, and that will be improved.
We're calling it,
Is that-
we talked about this before when we were looking at this site, that, you know, there's the idea of having the multimodal greenway and the connections. And so we took advantage of when we bought the old FOP site, that was really going to help us with, and primarily for the emergency access, but it's also a wonderful place for parking of a trailhead that will eventually be used for trails that will connect in that area.
That was before you joined us.
Yes.
We had quite a discussion.
Yep.
So is the purpose of the trailer for a future trail, or do you plan on including that with this project? There's at least starting the greenway around the peninsula.
Yeah, we're not able, we talked to staff about this, we are not able to, that's why we're providing the easement. Because of funding that was provided in the greenway area, we're not able to actually put in a trail this time. We have to wait for some years, I forget how, 8 years before we're actually able to utilize that area for a trail. So that's why the easement's there, and then we will have an agreement to say that we will put the trail in when that term expires. Yeah, it's a CREP zone, essentially,
Is it agreement with the,
township.
I see, but what's the 8 years for?
For a CREP, so you can't touch the CREP area during an 8-year period, otherwise you'd have to pay back. And it wouldn't be us, it'd be the prior owner, would not be very happy to pay back hundreds of thousands of dollars that they received for putting in trees and whatnot. It'll lend itself to a nice trail, but you can't touch it for 8 years.
Understood.
And Ben, do we have, let's see, what will connect with the other things that are going on? Do we have a projected timeline of, how that meshes in with that? Aren't we connecting this to some other things that are?
Well, there certainly is a hope.
Yeah.
But we don't have definitive dates, so I can't say that it
Right.
works
I'm just
quite
saying this, John, that, that it's not like, okay, we're all ready to go and we gotta wait 8 years. It's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
melded together.
Well, the trailhead actually might be good right now, because I know that the city has plans for Water Street,
Yes.
which would be a perfect spot for someone to park there and access the Water
Right.
Street
And
trail.
all of this is part of a trail master plan that the Lancaster Township, other municipalities like West Lancaster, when I was in the West Lancaster Township manager, and we worked on this, the city, the county was a part of it. So all this we're talking about is a part of a plan,
Mhm.
and we intend to, as the city intends, and I'm sure the township intends to do all this work. It's a matter of timing. How do things line up? So we just happen to have the opportunity, because of this project and acquiring that piece of ground. It's a perfect site for a trailhead.
Yeah, maybe even including something for fishing access there in the meantime.
Yeah, that's certainly on the table, what we're hoping to negotiate and work out, timing and functionality.
Sure.
So,
The wonderful thing is the county park, as you heard, is right across the street. I'm looking at him because he has a division of his department that's Parks and Recreation, and they're looking at how we can incorporate some of these things as well.
A huge bridge. Just kidding.
we're not,
I know you said you didn't want to talk about the building at all, but do you have any idea about height?
Of the facility?
Yeah.
Not yet.
And
But we are looking, and and when we come back for more formal presentations, we're keenly aware of the issues of sightline, and so I know that that's being discussed in final design about the height of the building and the trees and canopy and whatnot. So that you will see that. We'll bring that in when we come back at some point.
okay.
If that's what you were getting.
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
is.
and I don't know what this was rezoned industrial.
Yes.
Do we know what the max height of industrial is? If hopefully a variance isn't required.
Oh, no. No, we work with you to make sure that the zoning would fit what our needs are, so that's not going to be an
Okay.
issue.
That's all I have. Thank
And
you.
so the major access into that, it looks like on the sketch there that that's sort of paralyzed the emergency access, is that?
This is the primary access into the site,
Yeah, yeah.
and your question is what, I'm sorry?
And that's parallel to, you said that, is that the other emergency access?
No, the red dots are, there's a 10-foot wide pedestrian access.
Okay, sorry,
Going up
thank
through
you.
there.
Thank
Right.
you for the clarification.
So it's not just a narrow sidewalk, it's a nice access way.
Deborah, Al, or anyone else, if there are any questions or thoughts? Sure. Okay.
I'll just add, I know you're not, with my question about the sustainability measures, I know you're not there talking about it, that they're considered, so that when we see a final plan, it's not too late to think about those things.
Any,
Question, one more just came up to me. Have you, so what happens what is the like preferred route of someone who is driving and they miss the entrance coming down Highland? So are they gonna then come left and try to get back onto Queen?
So the circulation would be to go north to Furnace and then make that loop around.
Okay.
I did that today to come here.
Dave, if I may, there's a couple of things that I think are worth mentioning at this point. The team has been working with PennDOT, Lancaster City, and West Lampeter Township on a traffic impact study. And that's been going on for quite a few months, I believe. So there's a lot of issues that are being discussed and considered to make sure that PennDOT's road, which is Highland Avenue, is appropriately taken care of, that the U-turn is appropriately looked at. Now, the city boundary, though, is it's arbitrarily 1 mile from Penn Square, right? It's the big square we talked about. And it just sort of runs right along there and coincidentally hugs along the southerly right-of-way of Greenwood Avenue. City road, not township road. The township boundary stops just where it's depicted. So there's some back and forth we're having with the city and working through a number of different issues for connectivity, and I'm sure the county is trying to accommodate as many of the requests as are feasible to include. So I just want to make sure we understood where that municipal boundary was with the city.
Will that traffic impact study be part of the land development submission?
It will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. State your name, please.
Mary Mark, I'm in Conestoga Boulevard on the isolated part of the township. So if someone came on the bus and the bus only stops down there at the 222 split, how far actually would they have to walk to get up to the visitor center, visit, and then get back? If the bus doesn't go onto the,
How long is this?
yes,
It's about 1,400 feet, I believe.
okay.
Any other questions or comments from the audience? Yes, ma'am. State your name and your address.
Melissa, live in Conestoga. I was just wondering if there's like any special claims for stormwater capture for the stormwater that comes off the roof and parking lot.
Yes, so we're going through engineering right now, but at this point, we're confident that we can meet all the township, and this will get reviewed by the township as well as by the county conservation district for all those permits and we're confident that we can meet those requirements.
If you do have somebody with disabilities that rode the bus, would you have a way to get them from the bus stop to the facility? Or have you been thinking about that at all?
This is, the profile for this is actually ADA compliant.
Okay.
So it's ADA compliant all the way up, all the way from Highland Ave to the building.
So it's a flat terrain.
Yeah, I mean, it took some effort
Yeah.
to make that happen, but that was important to us. Important to the county to make that happen.
Okay. Anything else? We thank you and we look forward to you returning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month. Thanks. Thank you.
All right, we will now move to new business. We have 2 items here for discussion. And the first is the proposed natural landscape ordinance. And Ben, do you want to do an intro for us for this?
I do not.
You don't want to, or you?
I have nearly nothing to do with either of these draft ordinances. These are
John.
These have all been driven by John.
something to say.
But thank you.
Okay, so first I want to say thank you to Justin. Justin's been giving me some help with this outside of the planning commission through his employment. He's been able to give me, he's got some research already in on this and was kind enough to let me use much of his model ordinance to bring into ours. And then discussion with staff, we decided that there was a few other items that we wanted to add on. So if you look at what's before you as what I've proposed as a draft so far, nearly everything back until G. So in the last page where it says G right away, and then H setbacks and I registration. Those are really the only 3 things I added based on staff comments to what Justin gave me as the model ordinance to base this off of. So I want to jump back a little bit. This was something I was looking at early this year, early in the growing season. And then if you remember at one of our planning commission meetings, Mr. Afriel brought this topic up as well. So I had been seeing a lot of properties that they have this overgrown appearance. Some of them are well kept, others no. At least not the appearance of being well kept and maintained. And in reading our ordinance, there was nothing in there that makes any kind of exemption. It says grasses are not permitted to be longer than 6 inches. So there's no exemption in there for that. If people are maintaining and trying to use the science behind the concept, I think it's something that the township needs to account for. But we also need to be able to have some sort of bite for those who are not maintaining or just kind of letting a jungle grow in their yard and claim that it's a natural landscape.
Yeah, I get concerned that vegetation devours the residents.
Yeah.
CE, not TS.
So that's kind of what pushed this to light. And then after that planning commission meeting, I took it back to the township manager. He gave me approval to start on this, and it went before the board of supervisors at August meeting, and they referred it back to the planning commission for some input. So they really didn't have any discussion on it other than they were presented the draft and suggested it come to the planning commission. So we're here tonight to hear any comments that the commission has on it and take that information back to the supervisors.
I think that, I'd like to get confirmation from all the planning commission members. I think this is something that's really, really important, because as we drive around the places, and there's some places that it's hard to even find the driveway, or it's hard to see the home, the house, and we need to have some mechanism to manage, I want to say not control, but manage those kind of situations. So are we all in agreement that this is really a necessary thing to do?
I like it, I like it from the other end of not worrying about nuisance properties, but allowing people to, if they don't want to have lawn, have more of a meadow kind of native landscape, so I think it's a good thing.
I'm
Yeah.
supportive.
I'm on the same page there. I did just have comments or questions about the 4-foot setback from an alley. How did you arrive at 4 feet? Why not 2 feet, 1 foot?
So,
And is it a public, so it's a public alley that's dedicated
So-
to the township?
the way we got to 4 foot is the majority of our public alleys, they have a 4-foot right of way. We included,
From the 4
From the
foot
edge?
from the edge of the pavement?
yes, that's my understanding.
So to stay out of that.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I see the setbacks as important is I see some properties around the township where the growth is, I mean, it's, even though it's well maintained, falling into the streets, falling into the alleys. You know, some of the properties, even, you know, although it's probably private driveways that it's affecting most, cuts down on their vision. So our goal would be to try and keep that out of those areas. We have a couple of alleys right now, we're working with residents to cut back growth, not just this type, but shrubs and so forth, because it's already out into the alley. You literally cannot drive a car down the alley without scraping the sides of your vehicle because of the shrubs and so forth. So we're trying to have a push overall to get those alleys opened up and keep them maintained. That's where we came with the 4 foot. They're not every alley is the same, so we had to kind of pick a number that best suits everything for the alleys. And then of course, we also said for setbacks, 10 feet for the roadways, any roadway frontage. And then setbacks, we talked about 36 inches. I know this is something Justin and I had quite a discussion on. I don't know that we quite agree, but the staff's thought was 36 inches of setback. So the case would be mostly like a side yard. If Ben decides to have a natural landscape and lives beside me and I don't want that, I don't have to worry about his vegetation growing into my property, like leaning over into it or anything like that. Help keep away from any kind of property disputes. We just felt that that setback would be a buffer for, to hopefully avoid further problems.
I think you brought up about the sight distance problem too, and I know in the past, and fortunately the property owner has been very cooperative, but beautiful hedge, but it was encroaching the sidewalk and also cutting down on sight distance. And did you have another question?
Yeah, no, that makes sense, John. I feel like then the setback and the right-of-way width are conflicting with each other, because it says a minimum setback of 36 inches shall be maintained in accordance with Lancaster Township Ordinance 105-3 at no more than 6 inches in length. This setback shall be applied to every property line and private alley. Okay, that's where the difference is. Public alley is 4 feet.
Yes.
Private alley is 3 feet, and then property lines.
That took me 3 reads to put that all together.
Well, it took me one.
Because unfortunately we do have, well, some that, there's such a debate and we don't have records of, is it public, private, or what is it? And I think one of the situations was next to the Watt Mansion and the other property where there's an access there, but.
Is 105-3 the grass ordinance?
Yes.
So if someone is in violation of this, then they're then in violation of the grass ordinance, and then you have the remedies of the grass ordinance.
So we kind of thought of this as an exemption, and I'm not sure quite how we work it into the actual ordinance, if it's a new ordinance or if this is an exemption to 105-3. So in theory, if you're violating, if you're not in compliance with this ordinance as an exception, you're in violation of 105.3. So this really isn't the enforcement section. This is the exception to allow you to have that growth in excess of 6 inches.
Do you mind if I add some
Go ahead, please.
commentary? I appreciate how open you've been to talking about some of these things. I've got to separate maybe pride of authorship from issues that I see potentially occurring from these 3 additional provisions here. I'll try to take this in order. First of all, this is a model ordinance that was designed intentionally to work with any number of existing weed and lawn ordinances that we've observed across Pennsylvania, and they all work a little bit differently. Ours is interesting. The existing lawn and weed ordinance that we have has a 6-inch height limitation on things that are defined as grass and weeds. Grass is really broadly defined, and the definition, I think, unintentionally captures a lot of like ornamental grasses and native grasses that people are already growing. And then weeds is defined as, it's not verbatim, any plant not intentionally planted for a customarily ornamental purpose, which might accidentally exclude a lot of like really good native perennial plants that aren't customarily ornamental, but that have really good ecological benefits. So the effect of enacting this ordinance against that backdrop is to give the township the ability to approve of, really beautiful ornamental grasses, certain sorts of like meadow plants, things that are not customarily ornamental or that are defined as grass, and therefore officially are required to be cut to 6 inches, which is not happening because a lot of these plants are really pretty, nobody's mad about them. So that raises a couple issues with these additions here. One is that a lot of those tall grasses are currently planted in violation of this. They're already less than 10 feet or less than 10 feet from public roadways, and the township already has certain remedies there to protect sight lines and prevent encroachment on sidewalks. The existing language of this ordinance already includes section 6F, that this permission is subordinate to all of those other protections of public right-of-way, encroachment, et cetera. And when you look around this neighborhood, for example, a lot of people have really interesting and creative plantings that go right up to the sidewalk, or not, there is no sidewalk, right up to the edge of the street. I think it would be great if we enact something like this, that it accommodates a lot of things that we can already see are happening and that look quite good and have a lot of good benefits for stormwater, et cetera. If you require these setbacks, it's a little unclear what people need to do. Like, do those grasses too close to the street need to be cut? Do you need to have a mow strip along the lawn? Like, it's going to sort of, I think, muddy up how this permission functions. That's one comment about the public right of way. On the 36-inch from lot lines, I'm afraid that also puts people in an awkward position, because especially in close, dense neighborhoods like this, a 3-foot mow strip, but frankly, it doesn't need to be a mow strip. It just requires people to categorize their plants as customarily ornamental or not be grass. And that kind of makes things, I think, a little more challenging for the township in administering this, because rather than looking at the overall intention of the thing, you're now picking and choosing plants, which I think can become a difficult burden and actually set the stage for some just more complicated conflict. And I'd also point out that neighbors generally have the right to, if your neighbor's plant's falling over on your property, you have certain self-help rights under common law to trim those grasses back. So my hope would be that whatever we do here is sort of like working well with the good stuff people are already doing, and that doesn't create sort of confusing puzzles people have to solve. Next comment. I got 2 more. The registration concept, I think I understand the purpose. It's not a part of the model that We Can Serve PA is publishing, specifically because if registration is free and it's totally voluntary, it's a little unclear what the effect is of failing to do it. And once somebody registers, that doesn't mean their landscape will stay compliant. So I think it has limited value. And it also kind of pushes some people back into the shadows of like not wanting to put themselves on the radar, so they don't register. I think the ordinance that you proposed here functions better if it's a tool mostly for the township when it's looking at a landscape and not something that somebody has to affirmatively opt into by registering with the township. That's a functional question. I don't think it's the end of the world to do it. I think I understand your theory for why it would help.
So, if I can, the registration, the intent of that, so if we can come up with a registry as far as a software to efficiently run that, the intent was to not have a fee. It's more knowledge for us. So again, if Ben's growing a natural landscape and me being maybe uninformed as his neighbor, I call the township and say, hey, my neighbor's not mowing their grass, it looks terrible. And then the township can say, well, on the registry, Ben has registered his property as a natural landscape. We'll look at it, but he's growing his grass or is under an exemption, and.
Ben would more likely be checking to see if it fits the description of a rain garden, or if it's gonna impede some other stormwater.
So it was, I mean, we're not doing the registry or thinking of the registry as something intrusive to the residents. It's more so we don't have to bother you as someone who's taking advantage of this exception, and call you or come visit
Would
you
you
or send
wanna-
you a letter.
You know how the Bay program, maybe Chesapeake Alliance, other places give out this, you know, some people, you see the placard. If you put a positive spin on that, you're not registering, you're not like coming here and checking in with us, but we're now certifying that you have this eco-friendly landscape.
Yeah.
You
So,
might get different
we're not opposed to
response to
that.
that. question.
We just feel that some people will take advantage and just,
Well, you'd have
slap
to
something
look at
out
it
there.
Yeah.
and say, yes, this qualifies.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, and I appreciate because I was gonna ask the question of what's the intent, what's the goal, what we're gonna get out of this, what are the benefits? And I'm thinking, like you said about software to do it, I mean, we have other things that we keep track of where a property owner or someone else hasn't necessarily taken action to do it, we just gather it. So I would look at this as saying, okay, if this is important information for us to have, do we need to have it as an official registration? Or I like Angie's idea to say, could we develop a program so that, hey, if you're really proud of what you're doing and so forth, we'd like to affirm that that you really care about this and have some kind of a feature. I like the positiveness of it rather than saying, hey, if you're gonna do this, you gotta raise it, because it may detract or deter someone from doing something. And the last thing I wanna do is go through another registration.
so Angie, would you say like a township, like an official sign that if you're a part of this, that
You could
somehow
offer
lists the
that.
township?
And maybe someone doesn't want to sign it, but you could offer that, but you'd also know then
Sure.
this place is.
And I think it would be a positive thing for the township too, that we recognize that those are, important initiatives.
It could be. My concern with that is that landscapes are just so dynamic, and you can have a well-managed landscape that gets recognition, and then the next year, speaking from personal experience, family has a baby, and landscaping goes out the window, and now you have you could end up with serious overgrowth issues. Like landscapes are too dynamic, I think, it could end up being a scar potentially on the program if you've got these signs. And this is something I've observed, like Audubon and other groups offer certification programs. The signs go up and they don't come down, even when the landscape gets completely replaced by invasive weeds and vine overgrowth.
You're telling us the devil's in the detail, I think.
Yeah, and time's a heck of a thing, I think my yard looks great 1 week, and 2 weeks later, I just can't believe what's going on out there.
Looks like mine apparently.
I feel like this permissive structure as an exception to the prohibition works best as a way for the township to extend basically grace or lenience for people who are doing something with intention. But if that changes next year or next month, you still have the ability to go in and say something about it. I'm worried that if you have like this registration, somebody might mistakenly think they've got some defense for proper maintenance by having registered, and other people might, think that if they register, that they're going to avoid registering because they don't want to be on your radar at all. My neighbors like my yard, I don't have a problem. Like, I'm not going to hear from anybody. What am I going to go out of my way to register for? That's sort of the theory behind the development of the model. Of course, I've told you to do this already. I'm just saying it out loud for the benefit of the other members of the board. And then one last thing, John, the conformance piece. I understand what this is saying. I don't know if it works well legally in terms of how this layers with the existing ordinance. This will be a question for the solicitor eventually.
That's actually kind of why it's there.
Everything in this proposed ordinance is an affirmative permission. You can't really violate it. You can have a landscape that doesn't fall here, and then it's automatically back under the other one. But to say that you're not in compliance with this title is confusing conceptually, because this is all affirmative permission that this thing contains. That's all I got.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Justin, Ally, you have anything?
No, but I'm on board with it.
Okay. And Deborah?
No, he actually discussed two of my concerns, one being the existing landscapes that are out there that are positive, but, you know, may not want to register, and the registration issue, I agree. It may be difficult to have people want to continue to register, and then some of those that feel that they're registered with other preservations or landscape artistry, that, you know, it wouldn't be suffice, so.
You know, I want to commend Justin and John and all the other people that work on this. Quite a great undertaking, and I think that we could, you know, have some other discussion on this. And if it's a proposed ordinance, it has to be advertised and so on and so forth. So the opportunity for public input, but I think we want to make sure we put the best possible ordinance before the public to comment.
I have a text suggestion for the native plant definition and in addition to the naturalized landscape area. I'll just email it to you.
Okay.
And yes, your name and address?
Jane Shaw, 1414 Westview Drive. I have a concern about the ordinance having the 3-foot property line, what do you call that? Setback, okay, thank you. In my neighborhood, most of us don't know where our property lines are. And there are established trees and shrubs that probably are, who knows which side of the property line they're on, and whoever maintains them does so out of interest and care. I think I would be pretty devastated to have someone come tell me I had to cut back 3 feet of my shrubbery and trees because they don't conform to the property line setback rule. And it would pretty much bugger up my design. And that's true on both sides of my property. I don't go all the way to the property line just because it's been a custom in you know, with my neighbors. And we have sort of an agreement, and it's fluid and cooperative. And so I'm concerned that, you know, having these setbacks being rigid in areas where the strictness isn't as important as in tightly, you know, compact neighborhoods. My neighborhood, I have 2/3 of an acre of property. And most of my neighbors have around a ½ acre. So it's kind of loosey-goosey about the property lines, is what I'm trying to say. And it would disturb a lot of existing landscaping to enforce that.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi.
And your name, please, and address?
Linda Ferrick. I actually live in West Lancaster Township. I work for Lancaster Conservancy, and I coordinate the Community Wildlife Habitat Program, and several of our volunteers live in Lancaster Township. It sounds like, are you guys talking about the model ordinance that I just got last week from We Can Serve?
Yeah, I work at We Can Serve. That's my day job.
You do? How wonderful. Well,
I work with a lot of your colleagues
the really
all the
great
time.
thing about this is the definitions of the naturalized landscape ordinance. Did you see that page as well? I mean, on here, it makes it very clear that if you're not failure to conform to the ordinance, then you have to, you're subject to enforcement then. But I would just like to offer Lancaster Conservancy services to help you guys in any way. What we do is we go out to properties and we sit down with property owners and we go over landscapes with them, and we teach them the importance of native habitat, but also how to make a habitat that is neighbor friendly, showing that there's human intention involved. So that's the Lancaster Conservancy program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay.
But don't ask him about my property right now.
So we're actually
It's
neighbors.
flopping over the sidewalk.
He suggested that
we take a photo and put it on our website, so, yeah. Yeah, yes.
I'm Lisa Joseph, and I live just over here in Lancaster Township. And I also don't care for the boundaries or whatever. But I'm also wondering about the 6-inch rule. Seems a little arbitrary, because there are some beautiful low-growing native plants that will not obstruct the view, that will not flop into the street, that can be planted right up to a sidewalk or a street, that provide habitat instead of that green turf, which is nothing more than green concrete and does nothing for stormwater management and so on. And the plants that we plant, you know, they're really, they have a function. They're providing for wildlife, they're absorbing stormwater management, they're helping with carbon sequestering carbon and so on. And so, you know, the 6-inch rule, you know, that seems like something left over from, I don't know what, the 1950s golf course imagery. And the other thing is, I think it's a matter of aesthetics we're talking about here. To me, what really I think is ugly is nothing but turf grass, which I know my neighbors put poison on, which is killing everything. And they spray their lawns, they spray their trees. It's drifting over into my yard. When we moved here 11 years ago, I had tons of pollinators, and now I'm seeing so few. So, you know, I think there are many of us who are doing all we can to save the planet and to provide for wonderful places for our children to discover. But if we have these ordinances that are just arbitrarily saying we need turf, we need 6 inches, we need, you know, 36 inches from the curb and so on, that's really, you know, I don't know, I'd love to see a new aesthetic in gardening, and I'd like to see it being adopted. Now, you're talking about hedges growing over alleys and so on. I understand that's a safety issue, and that, I would agree, needs to be addressed. But, you know, I really think there is definitely a place, especially in this day and age, for us to reform the way we garden. And I think we can make each other happy. I think we can do both.
Yeah, I believe Justin sort of teed that up when he was saying about the definition of grass. It's like, it's all over the place. So I think maybe some other clearer definitions may assist with that, but it's another great comment, and we thank you for that concern.
Justin, did you consider defining the term meadow when you were drafting the model?
We don't use meadow specifically. If you look at the definition of naturalized landscape area and plant selection, it is broader than meadow. It calls, you know, you could try to set up a meadow habitat, sort of a meadow landscape area within the confines of this ordinance. You could also do like a miniature woodland. It doesn't pick and choose between the type of habitat you construct. It also doesn't distinguish between, you know, broadly the type of plants you can use, as long as you're choosing them with some sort of intention and they're not invasive plants as recognized by any formal, you know, list or authority. Noxious weeds are specifically excluded. And I'll point out too that under there's a lot of different shapes and sizes of weed ordinances across Pennsylvania. Some of them are really restrictive. Lancaster Township's existing one, this is legal advice, is that for the township to crack down on your plants, they have to argue that they are not conventionally ornamental, which is a pretty squishy and difficult thing to argue. So there's currently no prohibition, for example, on eliminating your whole lawn and replacing it with other plants as long as you fit within that meaning of either not grasses. There's currently you can't have grasses over 6 inches, although I don't think that was the intention for some ornamental grasses. Or the plant isn't conventionally ornamental in some way, arguably. So
Can I ask who gets to define conventionally ornamental?
Yeah.
ultimately, it would be a judge. In the short term, you know, the township staff could make one decision, you could argue with them, and if you can't agree, ultimately it would go to another judge. I'd like to be in that courtroom.
But we don't want to get to that, right?
I want to hear the technical definition of squishy.
I think it's
Is there another comment? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on this conventionally ornamental. That term comes from the nursery business. And the nursery business for many, many years specialized in non-native plants. And they have educated the public to prefer conventionally ornamental plants that do nothing for the environment or wildlife. So I would strike that phrase out of any ordinance or law that pertains to landscaping. It's very misleading and misdirects people. And we need to educate people at every turn. So I just, we need to educate people to look at function and not just beauty. That's what is critical to the environment.
And John, we don't have any kind of deadline or anything for this. I think that, we've gotten a lot of good information tonight, so I think this is a work in progress. I think we continue and maybe get an updated draft, if you will, and if people have any other things that they'd like to send to the township
Definitely a work
office.
in progress, and just for more for convenience efficiency, our goal is to have it in place by the next spring when we start seeing this pop up again. But I mean, there's quite a few steps that we have to go through, including review from the solicitor too. So
that would probably mean that it would need to be advertised by February or March of next year. Because I mean, the ordinance needs to be advertised 30 days.
yeah, I think it's probably February is probably ideal.
Okay. Is there one more comment?
Well, I just wanted to add to what James said, and what's conventionally ornamental, a lot of those species are now on the invasive species list. The burning bushes, the Bradford pears, and they're also finding that a lot of the non-native flowers that pollinators go to for nectar sources, or, they not only do not provide the proper nutrition, but a lot of them, like butterfly bush, are actually harmful to the insects that eat them. So I think we have to consider that when we think of our conventionally ornamental.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're ready to move on to the second discussion item, which is the proposed rental ordinance. John?
Yeah, so a little bit of background on this. We've had some problems with, and I'm not going to name properties, of course, but we've had specific problems with certain rental properties within the township. Basically ignoring their duties to perform general everyday maintenance. There's one property in particular that, at least what it appears to me, is unless I threaten some sort of legal action, they will not do anything until I hit them with a notice of violation and threaten to take them to court. It's the only way they seem to react to what simply needs done. I'm forced to take properties and condemn them. We've used that as a tool to get some compliance. That's not really something we want to do. That's a little heavy-handed, but when property owners or managers refuse to do the things that are necessary, we don't have much choice. So unfortunately, the property owners that are doing what they're supposed to and trying to run, keep the maintenance up and do the right things, and provide a nice place to live, in an ordinance like this are going to be forced to, to the same rules. So we came up with a draft ordinance that is, it's really based, The administration of it is based off a new software that the township is considering purchasing, that we could incorporate it into there, which would include things like a registry, both for the property manager and for the resident. And we'll get into some of that in a moment here, but basically what it's going to do, the intent is to provide a nice place to live and a safe place to live for our residents. There's some properties I really believe they don't have a safe place to live, or a reasonably safe and sanitary place to live. I see some of the complaints that we get and go in and, things, some of it's beyond our control, but things like molds and lack of maintenance, and, we went into a place where the dishwasher stopped working, so someone from the manager's office disconnected it, but left live wires hanging where the dishwasher once was. So some of those things are just simply a lack of maintenance and care. So we're hoping that this will give us some ability to go after those property owners that are doing a poor job, and also to give the residents an opportunity, a way to communicate with us easily, to say there's a problem with what the conditions they're living in. So a lot of this was taken from other municipalities. The city and a lot of this is from the city's ordinance. Theirs is really, there's a lot more to it than what I took. What I really liked about theirs is the disruptive conduct. I can give you an example without the address. We had a property that the police were called back, I think it was about February. They were called 9 times, I believe it was, in like a 2-week period to the same apartment. All of it was disorderly conduct type thing, loud noise, music, arguing, fighting, all those things, disrupting the neighbors, not only in their building, but the adjacent properties. This would actually provide a way for the to get those bad people creating these problems out of the properties and move them on to somewhere else. So the disruptive conduct, it's basically gives them several opportunities to stop and correct the action. And the plan would be to, when we get notified by the police that they've responded to these type of situations, we would in turn notify the property owner or manager that the police were there and had a disruptive situation. And if they have too many of those situations, then we're going to look to try and have them evicted. So this would include a registry. The registry would include fees, and those fees are more than anything administrative because we're talking also some inspections. So we're trying to be to keep the level to be as least intrusive as possible in the township towards the residents in particular, as well as the property owners and managers. So we're looking at inspections to be more of a reactive so if a resident calls and says there's a problem, they don't have the necessary appliances, and their property manager's not repairing that, it gives us a tool to come in and do an inspection and confirm that. And then we can go after the property managers to put some pressure on to get that repaired. The registry, the inspections as part of the registry would also allow for some random, if you will, inspections where we could come contact, it would be prearranged, but we would contact the property managers and say, hey, we would like to do some inspections. We're trying to come up with a way that would be equal for a complex that has 400 apartments versus a smaller complex. So not one or the other, you know, it's a fair process for them. And we're looking at the registration being annual. They would have to pay an annual fee for that, and an incentive possibly to perhaps give like a discount similar to our taxes often are, where if you pay by a certain time, there's a, I think our taxes are a 2% discount if you pay by a certain time. Something similar along that line to be an incentive to get them to register before the deadline. So we're also looking at essentially a survey that we would be able to, through the software, put online. So you as a resident would have to go on to the website and fill out a survey, and it's maybe 5 questions, typically like a yes or no, a little bit of demographic information just for tracking the apartment. It would be questions like, does your heat work? Do you have the appliances, working appliances in your apartment? Just a couple of odds and ends that are basic requirements for the apartment. And it would just be simple yes or no questions. The property manager or owner would also have to fill out probably the same questions, and it's just a check. We're looking at it as a check and balance type thing. So if the manager says everything works great, and the tenant says, I haven't had a refrigerator in 2 months, we have a mechanism, a flag to get our attention to go conduct an inspection to verify that. Those are the highlights, if you will. So
How do we manage rental properties now? Do you know of all the rental properties in the township, or where are we coming from at the start?
What I refer to as the commercial properties, so, you know, the bigger complexes, those are pretty easy for us to make a list. I have a pretty good list. I'm not saying I have them all, but the majority of them are on a list where I've gathered some information to include like how many apartments, how many buildings, contact information for the managers. The more difficult ones to track are the smaller, and even this is currently written to even include like if you rent a single family dwelling. I think those are included as well. Those are a little harder to track. We feel we have a pretty good idea of where those properties are based on our trash records. So most of those like single family dwellings and smaller apartments are using our trash system, not using a commercial. So we feel we have a pretty good handle on those. Definitely some room to gather more information, but we feel we have a good idea.
So when I read this, I got the disruptive conduct part of it loud and clear. We have like big text and that'll come out. I didn't get we have kind of 2 things mixed here, right? We want our rental property owners to behave properly and provide certain conditions, and then we want our renters to behave properly and not be a nuisance to their neighbors. I don't know if it's clear that those 2 things are clearly delineated in this. I kind of think some of it runs together, which might be why some I'm like, what is this? Like, it didn't all make sense to me. So that was one thing about maybe some tweaking of the organization to lay those 2 things out clearly. Do we currently require renters to have renter's insurance? So that was one of the things in here that stuck out to me that I was like,
We do not.
can we require people to have renters? Like,
We do not currently require it. Several of the, again, commercial properties do require it. I question some of them on how strict they are on it, keeping up on it. So you rent, you sign your lease and you have insurance, you have proof of insurance, and a couple months later you cancel it, but they don't know, I don't want to say they don't care, but they don't follow up to ensure that it's valid. in reading some other municipalities with similar ordinances, some of them do require proof of insurance, and most of them seem to put that on the manager to require it and to track it, not the township or the municipality.
Okay.
I think that would be a question our solicitor would weigh in on,
Yeah.
let us know.
Okay. Under the, on page, I guess, 3, under tenant responsibilities, we ask all tenants shall certify that their apartment meets the standard set forth. How would they know that? Like, what are the standards? And so that might be something if you're separating out like disruptive conduct to rental property standards or expectations or something,
Yeah.
that they're clearly identified there.
So that, the wording probably needs tweaked a little bit,
Yeah.
and I kind of intentionally left it out because of the software. If we were to use this software that we're working through to purchase, that would be, there would basically be a mechanism to get them to the website to fill out that survey,
And
and
that's that
those questions
questions.
are outlined there. Those would be those standards.
And is this self-certification at the end kind of the thinking of what those would look like?
Yeah.
So one thing I thought should be added there is, do your windows open properly?
Okay.
Because in some of these old buildings, your windows could be painted shut.
Sure.
and You could not access them to get out or for ventilation or something like that. So that might be something else to add to that.
Sure.
Trying to think. I'll let somebody else go.
Will the
So-
police,
Good. Ally?
will the police receive any special training to be able to identify, like when we talk about the noise levels, would they use maybe a dB meter or something, or some way to verify that the level was sufficiently loud? I mean,
So
other than
the
just-
way I would envision it is essentially in the crimes code for Pennsylvania, there's a disorderly conduct section, and that would be the basis of what they would consider disruptive. So my instructions to them would be, look, if you get there and it's someone's disorderly conduct, it meets that criteria of the section, regardless of whether they were to, cite them or go any kind of prosecution, if it meets that definition, that would be the basis for our disruptive conduct.
I was wondering about, like, that makes sense, citing to some independent authority for what constitutes disorderly conduct. Number 3 jumped out at me, just the fact that music is audible from a distance of 50 feet.
That's it.
I don't think music has to be obnoxiously loud to be audible at that distance,
Right.
especially depending on the layout of the property. That one bothers me a little bit. It seems like there's an equity concern there with the different rules applying if you live in multifamily housing as opposed to a house with a yard and curtilage.
I feel like it would have to you have to define the decibel
Is that
to
in our
determine
noise?
loudness.
Is that in our noise ordinance? Would it just default to,
There is,
which might be defined as a
decibel
certain
levels are
time?
referred to.
Yeah,
The noise ordinance refers to times.
yeah.
So, during the day there's a reasonableness there. So, during the day you could be louder, so to speak, than in the middle of the night. The problem in my past experience with having decibel requirements in the ordinance is for the police for a prosecution, you have to be able to certify the decibel meter. There's a lot of other complications that brings. The police, generally speaking, do a pretty good job at showing up and saying, okay, at 51 feet, the noise is not that bad, but there's other times where, you could even be closer, and, bass is one of the big things with the music. With bass, I've seen some places where the buildings are vibrating, the whole building, but the music itself, you might not be able to hear the music at the same distance. So I think the police currently do a very good job of the disorderly conduct and the disorderly practices for the noise ordinance, applying a reasonableness to that.
And one other question here that I understand the purpose of the registry and even the self-certification by tenants is mostly to protect habitability standards for tenants. It bothers me a little bit that, I might be reading this wrong, but tenants are required to file a self-certification, and if they don't file, which is just gonna happen, I mean, people are busy, they might be subject to $1,000 penalty and cost of prosecution.
That would not be for the tenant.
I'm on the last page here. It says any person who doesn't comply with the provision of this chapter. That might be worth being very clear about.
Yes.
It'd be a shame to be trying to benefit them, but then put them in jeopardy.
Any landlord.
And then
Any person.
and then one other comment just for implementation of something like this. If I was a renter, I would be concerned about the confidentiality of my self-certification, concerns about retaliation by landlords, especially a landlord that's got a lot of properties and doesn't really want to be bothered with any of this stuff. How do you protect the confidentiality of the information people submit, either, through, I'm assuming nobody could see people's self-certification through the system, but even if township staff are going to do an inspection, what kind of protocols could you have for making sure that landlords aren't put on notice that the inspection was occasioned by something submitted by the tenant?
So, kind of hard to answer that. Because simply, we can have the best practices and policies to keep that information private, but at the end of the day, if I call the landlord and say, hey, we've got, report that at apartment 3, the appliances haven't been working for, 2 months, they're not going to suspect that the neighbor called and complained about that. They're going to suspect, rightly or wrong, that it was the tenant. So I can't prevent them from thinking that.
Right. It strikes me as helpful that you also have the plan and the intention of also having random inspections.
Yes.
So there's always the opportunity for deniability about what occasioned the inspection. And as a matter of policy, it would make sense, I would think, to, you're not calling a landlord and saying we received a complaint from your tenant, but we've inspected the property and confirmed that there's this problem there.
I think it's great for the township to do this because having been a tenant before, the state of Pennsylvania is very, very landlord friendly and does not go into any real detail about tenant rights except for when maybe your security deposit and some laws behind that. Coming from a place from Delaware, when I was a tenant there is pages and pages of tenant rights. So I think this is a great step. My only concern is for when you're defining disruptive conduct. Number 2, it says, involves music or noise that is disruptive to people occupying a different dwelling unit. So what is disruptive? Is it the fact that you don't like the music that I'm playing? Because it's not your favorite genre?
Yeah. So I kind of fall back to the same example with the police. So the police are going to be, almost everything in this with the disruptive conduct is going to be really the police primarily handling. It's not to say that during the day they couldn't call the zoning office and we go out and witness it ourselves, but it's primarily going to be handled by the police. We often hear the people above me, it seems like it's always the same thing. They have little kids and they're just running around all over the place and it makes a lot of noise and it disrupts me and so forth. Well, there's a certain level of noise that you have to anticipate when you're living in an apartment with other neighbors so close to you, just on the other side of the wall or above the ceiling. There's a certain level of noise that's reasonable. Things like people walking, the police aren't going to consider disruptive. If they have music or TVs or something so loud that it's bleeding into the other apartments, again, they're going to have to apply a reasonableness. And I feel that they generally do that now. I haven't seen any issues that I've felt like the prosecution or their reports were unwarranted.
So, like, this though is not a prosecution unless you're getting evicted, because once you get 3 of these reports, then you have the ability to get evicted.
Correct.
Then it would come down to that. It feels like they could be very choosy on how they interpret it for one person versus another person without any type of, maybe you could define a reasonable standard, because disruptive to one person on one day could be completely different to someone on another day. And the other thing I had took me aback is that number 4, it says is subject of a criminal citation, not that they've been prosecuted. So they could have been, just because they were accused and got a citation doesn't mean that they were found guilty of it.
So this is one of the parts that came from the city's ordinance as an example, and I believe the whole idea of that is to kind of use the crimes code as the level. If the disorderly conduct in the crimes code, if it meets that definition, they don't necessarily have to prosecute. If they don't feel prosecution is necessary, if they want to give a warning or for whatever reason, whether it was just to give them extra, grace, for whatever reason, they could still complete the notice to us saying that there was a disorder or disruptive conduct there. They wouldn't have to. A citation would not be a requirement to notify.
I'm going to just play devil's advocate. Imagine a scenario, someone gets 3 citations for something that might not reach the realm of getting found convicted. By the letter of this law, you could then evict them, because once it goes to the magistrate judge says, well, they have 3 citations, just because they weren't convicted, they still can be evicted out of their house based on this. That feels like a standard that could be abused.
So this actually, it calls for the eviction process to be started. That's the requirement on the manager, owner. We can't control what the magistrate would find as far as the eviction process. So when it goes to the magistrate's office, if the magistrate finds in the tenant's favor, then the manager has satisfied their requirements. We can't force them to be kicked out. We're trying to move it that way, but at the end of the day, it's not our decision, and it's not the manager's decision, it's the magistrate.
In other words, there's due process beyond the 3 citations.
And I would hope that if there's instances where perhaps the disruptive conduct really wasn't maybe as bad, and there's an interpretation by the officer that was maybe a little overkill, I would hope that the magistrate would then look at that as well and say, well, in this instance, I don't feel that they met their obligation, and maybe they decide just on that one that an eviction is not warranted. So I would hope that would be the check to work through that.
Okay. The question I had, suppose, because you said about it could be a single dwelling. How about if you have somebody that has a really large house, 6,000, 7,000 square feet, the lower level of the house has a separate entrance and all that, and that's an apartment, quote, that they rent out. Does this cover that?
Currently, the way it's written, it would cover that. So if you divide your house into multiple units, then and rent it, then it would be considered under the ordinance. We did kind of kick around the single-family dwelling a little bit. And the end of our discussion was, the people that live in a single-family dwelling deserve to have safe and and well-kept, maintained properties as well. So to exclude them from it, we kind of felt does a disservice to those residents that are renting a whole house.
I agree with that.
Tom?
I think it's a good concept to be evaluated. Warwick Township has one as well. I don't know if you looked at theirs. It's part of this, it's relatively new.
Okay.
They're doing a 3-year phase-in of going out and inspecting every rental property.
Okay.
I don't know if that should be considered.
Good point, Tom.
I have two quick questions. Under this section, disruptive conduct response, letter E, it says it refers to a reinstatement fee is paid. I don't know if that's discussed in this or if that needs more explanation. I couldn't figure out what that was about. So that might just be something for clarification in the text. And then the next one, F. So we say that after 3 incident reports in a year, in 12 months, the license of that property will be suspended. Is that to put some responsibility back on the landlord if somebody's gotten 1 or 2 citation reports that they need to take some, like they're supposed to be managing this better?
Yes, it's to put pressure on the managers, the property owners to maybe put the pressure, if it's a disruptive type thing, to put the pressure on the tenants to hopefully say, look, you know, as part of the township ordinance, part of their lease, I'm hoping that the leases in the future after this would be enacted would kind of reference here that there is an ordinance that governs that. But it would put some pressure on them to go after the tenants and say, look, you were told about this ordinance, you've gotten 2 incidents of disruptive conduct. Just to remind you, a 3rd one, and we file an eviction notice. So I would hope that it would put pressure on them to police their tenants.
Can landlords terminate leases now? Like, say they've got 2, I know they're gonna get 3, and I don't wanna get into that whole business, so I just want them out now. Like, is that something that could happen, and do we want that to happen?
We're not asking that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say we're encouraging it.
Right.
You know, if they have a lease written, some of these
Because I don't wanna
leases-
lose my license, right? I mean, I
Sure.
don't wanna lose, so what could they be, what are
So
some indirect unintended consequences?
Some
of
of the
that?
ordinances, or some of the leases rather, are very strict, and they can evict people for all kinds of stuff. If they choose to do that's not
No, right.
part of us. But if this actually, you know, just gives us the power, if they're not doing that or they're not taking any action, we see a lot of managers that are, you know, they don't really care. I mean, we've gotten complaints, oh, the neighbor's dog is barking all the time, or they're always loud TV, you know, and we say, well, talk to the property manager, did you do that? Some of them, I'm sure, try to get involved and talk to the tenants. Others, I suspect, do very little to try and fix those problems.
And this bullet F says short-term rental, so are we differentiating something there?
So there's already a
Opposed to
short-term
other-
rental ordinance.
Right, right. So to get 3 reports, they've got to go to the eviction process. But if that's triggered, I also lose my suspended license. Both of those things hit if somebody gets 3 reports.
No, they would not be suspended unless they failed to do their part, which would be to start that eviction process.
Okay, so I'm not sure
Should it say
that's
short-term
clear.
rental?
And should it say short-term?
Yeah, I'll have
rental?
to check
I
that.
think it
Okay.
should probably just not talk about short-term rental, because it's not talked about elsewhere in this.
I read this as part F here is addressing short-term rentals specifically. The rest of the ordinance already, unless I'm remembering this wrong, already has the process where you're required to commence eviction if your tenant of a long-term rental gets 3 things, gets 3 reports, and this is a separate thing that speaks to problematic Airbnbs.
Right.
That's how I read
That's
this
the short,
originally.
yeah.
That's probably covered in the short-term.
Yeah, I
Short-term
believe
rental
it
ordinance.
is. I'll have to read that more.
Yeah, just give that a look because, and if it's, regardless of the short-term rental, if it's to stay and it coincides with if you do not start the eviction process, I think that clause needs to be added
Okay.
to the beginning of this. 'cause
And I would
that's-
echo Tom's suggestion too, that it'd be great to look at another township, like a Warwick Township ordinance.
Some of the others I looked at were Mountjoy Borough, Manheim Borough, obviously Lancaster City, I already mentioned. There's one or two more too, but those are the three I can remember off the top of my head.
Okay, so once again, thanks everyone for your comments, and if you have other thoughts or so, please send them to the township, and this will also be a work in progress. Anything else on that? All right, is there any old business? Any announcements, John or Ben?
Go ahead.
So we're expecting two projects to be coming your way. One was discussed earlier this meeting, that's the prison. We're expecting a sketch plan with a waiver request to allow for combined preliminary final plan submittal for a land development plan. Then there will be a host of other issues that we'll get into as a part of that. And then, soon after that, then it'll be the submittal of the formal plan. So we're going to be busy for the next several months. On top of that, Wheatland Middle School has announced their intention to rebuild the middle school, which will get a lot of people's attention, as well as involve a lot of work for us. So that is going to be probably simultaneous with the prison plan review and processing. Then stormwater management site plan was submitted today. We haven't indicated that it is a complete application yet, but I expect it to be a briefing item for you for next week. And that location is 1944 Millersville Road. Currently there is a single-family dwelling. It is a very large lot. It's an old farm, so there's a lot of history we've had there that we need to go over with you, as well as the technical aspects of the stormwater management site plan. So,
Get ready to fasten your seatbelts.
yep. So, if y'all are going to go anywhere, please coordinate so we have a quorum. We need you. We definitely need you.
If there's nothing else, then I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?